Hi class, this is our first lab in LabFlow, and this is for Chem 110. I'm going to go over a few things here that will be posted elsewhere over and over again to make sure that you're fully aware of the rules. Pay attention to due dates. No late labs are accepted regardless of excuses or exceptions, because of the fact that labs are open on Monday and they close on Thursday. Gives you a couple days, more than a few days, to complete the labs. The exception is the lab that we are covering right now. This lab will open on the 17th and it will close on a Monday by 11:59. All labs close at 11:59 our time, Pacific Standard Time. You will have, for this lab, every lab is different, but for this one you have only a quiz. Most other labs you have a quiz, a pre-lab quiz, and you have a report. This one's just a quiz, as I believe next week is too. You have unlimited time to complete the quiz, so you can take your time. You will have 2 attempts to answer correctly. Quiz is worth 100 points. Most of the labs from my class will be 20 points for the quiz, 80 points for the lab report. Read the questions carefully. Make sure you understand what's being asked. Some questions ask for what is not part of something, and others will ask for multiple answers. So make sure you are very aware of the question before you answer it. There are 6 videos to watch that should have an S. You are responsible for making sure that you watch all the videos and keeping track. I have had students that don't, and then they turn to me and I'm not sure what they want me to do. If you've checked Canvas, you see that I number the videos, even though they're not numbered on LabFlow, to give you an idea of what you need to watch and what you need to follow. It's your responsibility to keep track of that. And yes, it can get overwhelming at times, so make sure you have a notebook or something to help you keep track and do a check mark if you have to. My communication is on Discord, so make sure that you are a part of the Discord, my server. That allows me to interact with you very easily, very quickly, and bypassing emails. Okay, so this lab is due on Monday, the 22nd by 11:59. All right, and one more thing. Because you can register right away, LabFlow has a trial period. You do not worry about financial payment. Also, if I'm correct, the district is picking up the lab payment, so this LabFlow is free to the students for this semester. So there's no excuse for not registering right away and completing this assignment. In fact, any students that are not registered by the 24th will be dropped from the class. So when you get into LabFlow, the first lab will come up. They're not numbered. You'll have to just scroll down. So this is the first lab, and this is what you'll see. You'll see lab safety videos and quiz. There's a little gray bar. This is what you're going to scroll, and it's going to take you to all the rest of the videos. They're all in one row, and I have them numbered here so you can see. So using lab safety equipment, understanding common safety signs, and so forth till you get to the quiz. This quiz has 34 questions in it. I don't know if I put it here. Yes, 2 attempts to answer correctly. It has 34 questions. It's a lot of questions. You need to watch these videos. They are loaded with information that you will need to answer in the quiz. I even suggest watching these videos 2-3 times, because once you do, it'll stick with you and you will answer the quiz a lot more quickly, and you'll retain the information. It's the videos are usually about 5 minutes long. Some are even shorter, so they're not 40 minutes. They start, they get straight to the point, and they end. That's a good thing. So I've put together some information that I felt was really, really important in the videos that might get overlooked, because there's so much information that you have to pay attention to, and also some things that I didn't feel that were very clear in the videos, and it's asked about in the quiz. So if I have information on these slides, just be aware that this might be information that is asked for in the quiz. So PPE, what is PPE? That is personal protective equipment. That's what you do or wear. That's what you wear to protect your body. Keeping yourself protected and following the rules in the lab is extremely important. When we are in person, I expect my rules to be followed completely. I deduct points. I will kick you out of class, because of the fact that, unfortunately, no matter how strict I am, I will always get students that don't know what they're doing. And a lot of students don't think about it, and they don't worry about that. But here's the thing. You never want to be next to that person that doesn't know what they're doing. People always think about themselves getting hurt by what they do, but you never think about the fact that you might be hurt by somebody who isn't taking the class serious next to you. So I come down really hard on students when it's about stuff regarding the lab. Plus, it's my job. I don't want to lose my job because of it. Now, I understand that we are in a pandemic and we're home, but if you do go back to class, if you continue with chem, the next section, if there's a chance that we go back, you are going to be expected to know this information. So it's good that it's covered here. Closed-toed shoes. I do not let anybody in my lab without closed-toed shoes. I check. I've had students try to hide, and I kick them out in the middle of class, and that's embarrassing for the student. I don't try to put the spotlight on them, but people do notice when somebody's closing up their lab drawer. I am very clear about that. You cannot wear anything that's not closed-toed shoes. Certain attires not even allowed. If the student tries to play that they didn't know, sometimes if it's questionable, I'll let them in, but I'll deduct automatically from the top 25% off that lab. And that usually stops students from wearing things that they shouldn't. A lab coat. Citrus doesn't require a lab coat, but I work at other colleges that do. You are free to wear one. Students do wear one. Students bring them in. I had some students that, in my mind, based on the rules, what they wear is not considered acceptable in the lab. But they bring lab coats and they cover up, and then I don't care what they wear because their body is protected, and they kept it in their drawer. So it worked where they got to wear what they want outside, but once they were in the lab, they followed the rules, and it was fantastic. Gloves, we also don't, in Citrus, the labs that we've done, gloves are not required, but you are free to buy some and use them. I have heard of instructors requiring students to have gloves. They are good. They do protect and so forth. I've also had students that can't use gloves. So it's an interesting thing that goes back and forth. However, I work in a lab as well as teach, and we wear gloves with everything that we do. Once we walk into a lab, we put our gloves on. So they are part of the proper attire. And goggles. Goggles are absolutely required, and certain type of goggles. I have a blurry picture from one of the videos. This has a strap. It has only these little pockets to open. It's not open on the side. Some students buy these safety goggles that have pockets, like little pock marks. Can't wear those. You can't risk anything that splashes and gets close to your eyes. So these are completely closed. They are completely uncomfortable. I don't know one student that likes them. They heat up your face very fast. You can't see, but you are required to wear them and keep them on the entire lab. And it's funny because I get students that complain about them, and then when class is done, they forget to take them off and walk out all the way out of the building with them on. So there's that. Here is a random question that was given in the quiz. So it fits into nowhere in the videos, but it's there in the quiz. How do you determine if a chemical has an odor? You never put your face directly over a container with a chemical in it. Never. Things can splash. You don't know what these things can do to your face. You don't want to inhale stuff. It's very dangerous. So what you do is you wave in front of the container, you make a wave towards you. So the smell will come towards you slowly, and you can smell it from a distance. And it's called wafting. Lab etiquette. So there's certain procedures that need to always be followed, and they're pretty straightforward no matter where you go. These rules are established pretty much everywhere. You have, for the general personal protective equipment in chemistry class, is usually safety goggles, a lab coat, and disposable gloves. Those are the three things that would be required in a lab. Safety goggles are always worn, and they have to be the proper type to be accepted in the class. There's other things that people will try to use as face shields and so forth. They do not fall into what is required and accepted. And if we were in lab, you would buy them from the bookstore. Any removed when chemicals are being used in glassware. I could have wrote that sentence better. I didn't proofread. Basically what that sentence is trying to say, that you can only remove safety goggles when no one is doing experiments in the lab anymore and everything's pretty much cleaned up. You cannot have them. If anybody is still doing experiments and glassware and chemicals are still open, you have to keep them on. Only when nobody is doing that you can take them off. So that's usually at the end of class, and it's mostly when everything's completely cleaned up. Disposable gloves are worn before handling chemicals and glassware. Why is this? Because you do not see the residue that's on your hands. We have oils, we have so much stuff on our hands. And you never want to touch glassware with those oils because you can get them on the glassware. You hold a spatula, which is what we use to pull chemicals out of a bottle and so forth. And you can get impurities on these things and on your glassware. And if you have experiments, then you can kind of have impurities in, I don't mean kind of, you can create impurities in your reactions, and that means that your results can suffer. So we do our best to wear disposable gloves to stop contamination with our hands. Besides that, when you work at a bench, you do not know that that bench has been used by thousands of students, and you don't know if each person has cleaned up before you got there. So there's residues of everything. And then when leaving the lab, you always remove your lab coat and gloves, and you always wash your hands. This is to make sure that even though you wear disposable gloves, you may have touched stuff before you put the gloves on, and you want to always get all those chemicals off of you. A safety data sheet. This is if there are chemicals in any building, in anything, anywhere, there are safety data sheets. This is law. We have to always have this. Most schools, most companies have them in a binder. And what they are is a safety data sheet, or it's a safety data page, but it's in a binder. Any chemical that you have on the premises has to have a safety data sheet. It has its own, and you file them away in a binder, and OSHA or anybody that comes, you have it ready. Fire department, if there is a problem with the fire department coming out, they will ask for this immediately. I know, I work in a lab. I found that out when I was not there one day and an emergency happened. The first thing they want is a safety data sheet. They want to know what chemicals are in this building. And the safety data sheet for one chemical, it's a page or a couple pages, and it contains the identification. So the chemical name and formula. It has a section for handling and storage. It will tell you what it's incompatible with or reactive with, and how to store it so it's stored safely. For instance, it might need to be stored in a dark, cool cabinet because light can cause it to change. Hazards identification, so possible dangers and health effects, things that can affect you that you might not even be aware of. First aid measures, if something happens to you, if you inhale it, if you get in your eyes, so forth. This is recommendations at what you need to do. And exposure controls, personal protection. So what do you need to protect yourself when handling the substance? This SDS is always in any building. And you would always, in lab, you don't usually have to worry about this, but for the quiz's sake, let's pretend you do. If you are working with a substance, you should always look at the SDS before you start using that substance so that you are very aware of everything about it. But if you are in lab, we also have these in lab for any of the chemicals that are there. Next thing is National Fire Protection Association. So it's NFPA Diamond. So that's in parentheses. That's just an abbreviation. These diamonds are everywhere. If there's a building that has chemicals in it, you've got to look, but they're posted on the outside of the building. And if you go inside, they're posted on all the cabinets that contain chemicals. This gives people an idea of what's in there and how hazardous it is. So it's a visual guide. The red, the blue, and the yellow are numbered. So they go from 0 to 4. And the white one is not. That one uses abbreviations. The red one, let's start with the blue. Blue is health. 0 being stable, and 4 being extremely, extremely dangerous. So it goes from 0 to 4. Same thing for red. All of them go from 0 to 4. If they're 0, they're stable, they're not reactive, they're okay, they're safe. So if you see this picture of water, it's all zeros. And anything, if it goes to 4, you've got to have proper safety procedures to use it. There's a lot of conditions that make it very dangerous. Blue is health, red is fire, and yellow is reactivity, what it can react with. White is special hazards. So that's something as an oxidizer, something that's corrosive, things like that. Numbered 0 to 4, and 0 being the lowest. So here's a picture of water. Here's a picture of acetone. If you know what acetone is, it's what we use to remove nail polish from our fingertips. and so forth. So that's what these show. This is 1 for health, 3 is flammability in a sense, and 0 is for reactivity. So here's an example that you should understand what these numbers mean. And let's just go through this. So zeros mean stable. So if you look at this top one, the red, which is flammability, and 0 and yellow is reactivity, are 0. They're very stable in those. But 3 means high risk of health. So there's something that goes on with this that can cause health problems. And it's an oxidizer. So these are things that we would store in a certain way. Number 2, this middle one has a 302. So the red is flammability. That one's okay. It's extremely stable. 2 is reactive. So it's somewhat reactive, but it's not as bad as 3 and 4. 3 still showing some health effects that could be dangerous. Now this one is one we would really pay attention to. It's 240. Why? 4 is the highest flammability. So this means that this one is extremely flammable. It's called a flash point, and a flash point is a volatile material. So that means something that has vapors in the air that can ignite. So the lowest temperature at which vapors can ignite, if there's an ignition source nearby, something that can cause it to ignite, it will just ignite. So think of like gas fumes and more gas fumes, and you're at the gas pump. You ever seen these videos where all of a sudden there's fire just started? It's because the fumes are in the air, the vapor, and something caused that to ignite. So these are very dangerous, and they have to be handled very well with strong ventilation and so forth. And this is also corrosive. So it's got to be in certain containers. It'll corrode away, and you do not want this on your skin. Now let's get into emergencies. You should always, and just in general, wherever you go, you should always know where exits are. Always. You need to know this, because I'm going to tell you right now, people think that they're going to handle things in a certain way. And I have seen enough times to know that don't think that you're going to react like the way somebody does in a movie. Doesn't happen. At Citrus, I was in the computer room with some students, and the lab portion, there was all of a sudden the alarms went on and they went dark, and the flashing and the alarms are really loud, and I could smell burning. So I'm trying to get my students out, and of all time, you guys never want to stay in class. I couldn't get my students out fast enough. They wanted to see what was going on, and I practically had to push them out the door. I've had students that have created fires in class, and they're a deer in headlight. They do not know how to handle what's happening in front of them. So these are things that you should always be aware of. One student had her gas go up so high that it was extremely dangerous, and nobody else noticed because everybody else was working on their lab. And I was yelling, I saw it, so I was walking really quickly to her, telling her, turn off the gas, and she stood there, frozen, did not know how to handle this because the gas was just so high and out of control. These are things that we go over in class, if you were in class, how to handle this. And even then, unfortunately, people don't always know how to handle it. So key things, always know where exits are. Pay attention to the safety stuff in here. It is important, even if you don't think it is right now. If you happen to go back, and we happen to go back, you're going to expect it to know this. Exits and safety areas should never have items blocking. So backpacks are not allowed in the lab portion. We have a classroom that's connected. Backpacks, water bottles, everything stays out of the room. Strictly what you need to complete the lab. We can't have things on the floor and have somebody spill a very strong acid on somebody else. Fire blanket. This is used, so these are safety things. First day of class, first day of lab, I go through and I show where all the safety items are. A fire blanket is used if a person is on fire. You wrap it around them very carefully, and then they stop, drop, and roll, and it puts the fire out. So if their clothes catch, and some clothes can catch and pretty much ignite spontaneously if it just like a whoosh, this is what you need. You would know where it is, you grab it, you put it around them, and you push them on the floor and make them roll, drop and roll. There is a safety shower. It's just a shower head, and you pull, there's a triangle, and it's pretty much like hose water. It's cold, and it it's a lot of water per minute, per second, but it's used to flush. If you have chemicals, say you drop a huge bottle of something on you, you need to get your clothes off immediately because they can burn you. They can attach to your skin. These are things that happen, and modesty should never play a part in it because of the fact that if your clothes stick to your skin, you're not going to have the skin that you once had. So if in the event of that, of course, all the students would be ushered out. But while it's happening, vanity should not be a concern. You would pull the triangle, at least at Citrus, there's a big triangle. You pull it and the water will just come gushing out, and you stay underneath it for 15 minutes. Next to the shower is an eye wash station. It looks like a drinking fountain, but it's got two spouts right where the eyes are. And you put your eyes in it. If you get chemicals in your eyes, you need to flush your eyes out for 15 minutes. And I mean flush them. You keep your eyes open and the water goes in. Because you need to flush them to remove any chemicals that made it to the back of your eye. And in 15 minutes, if you pretty much saturate your eyes, you can do that. Fire extinguisher. Fire extinguishers are by the exits in our classroom, what we would have had, and they're used for large fires. This is interesting because most people don't know how to use a fire extinguisher. So in the video, she covers how to do it, and you should really pay attention because I had to take a fire extinguisher class. They started a fire, and I had to use a fire extinguisher, and it's not as easy as you think it is. You have to pull a pin, but the pin has plastic protecting it, so you can't just push the knob down. So anyways, pay attention to what she says. If an evacuation occurs, like in the place where there was a fire and I was trying to get my students out, I knew exactly how to get them out. I didn't rush them. I was calm. I did rush them, but I was calm. And they were quiet. They listened to what I was telling them to do. And that's how it should always be. You need to stay calm. You need to stay quiet so we can get you out as soon as possible out of whatever danger is happening. And no, you will never have time to grab your belongings. You take what you have, which is your person, and you leave the room. If first responders need information and you happen to be where the incident occurred or the incident occurred with you involved, you would need to supply what chemicals were involved in the incident, any hazards that were present in the lab, anything else that took place, and how the incident happened. They need to have as much information so they can figure out how to deal with it. There's also waste. So when we do experiments, we have waste that, we have reactants, which you may not know what this is yet, but we have chemicals that we start out with, and then we have results from that. And we need to dispose of this stuff. So everything has to have a place to put it, and it has to be separated correctly. Things can react that shouldn't react. For instance, that fire that I was talking about at one day when I was in lab, that was from the paper wastebasket. Somebody threw something in the wastebasket that they shouldn't have, and it started smoldering and reacting with something else. And before long, there was a fire in the wastebasket. These are problems. You have to always dispose of stuff where they need to be. So as you can see, here's a picture. There's organic. This tends to be carbon and hydrogen. Again, you may not be aware of what these mean exactly. And this is aqueous. They are separated because we need to keep them separate because sometimes reactions can occur while trying to dispose of stuff, and it can be deadly. There's a funnel. This is called a Nalgene bottle cap. You flip this open and it's just a huge funnel, and you pour it into here and it reduces the spills. Nalgene's just the and my mind's blank, the substance it's made out of. And then you flip this lid closed again. So it's huge funnel, huge. If you see this bottle, the funnel's almost as big as it's a huge mouth to prevent spills. So anything, if you had a solution, this is what it would go into. You have a primary container, that's this container or this container. This is what's holding the waste in it. And you have a waste label. And the waste label needs to be as accurate and as informative as possible. So what would you need to have on this is what type of waste. As you see, this is organic, this says aqueous. The chemicals added. So we would need to know what chemicals were added here and what chemicals were added here and how much. So an approximation of how much did you dispose of a liter, or did you dispose of 1 milliliter? These are things that need to be known because the disposal company needs to know what exactly they're dealing with. They don't need to know anything besides this information here. And a secondary label, this should be container. A secondary container is the outside. It's just a huge tray, and it catches any spills that come from the primary container. So if these spill over, the liquids will fall into this container and not elsewhere. So it's very important to have these, and all labs have this set up. And that's pretty much it. This is important information I felt that you needed. You will see all of this in the video, but I've expanded on some of them to help you answer questions a little easier. But I really do suggest that you watch some of these videos 2 or 3 times because they are really loaded. It seems like every second is loaded with information that you're going to need to know to answer the quiz. Okay, thank you.